I've had a lot of time to think about the game that Brazil played over the weekend against Morocco, and I think it can be best summarized with the idea of going back in time 12 months ago and telling any Brazilian you're gonna draw against the team that's in the seventh highest ranked team in the world rankings right now. A lot of people would say, "Oh, but like it's Brazil, right? You should be winning a lot, right?" But now, when you look at it, and a lot of people are gonna say the same thing. Back then, that was amazing, and I think it's a great way of showing really how much progress this Brazil team has made over the past few months. And now that they've played the opening game of the World Cup, I think now that the dust has settled, we can look at this and say this is not a bad result, right? Obviously, there's a lot to hope for, having played that, right? Having seen that with my own two eyes, but I don't think it's as bad as people think, right? I think there's a lot of good takeaways from it, and I'm going to give you a short, tiny summary of 88 screenshots that I accumulated over the game, having watched it a second time. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. So these were the lineups for the Brazil-Morocco game, right? Ended 1-1 in the end. And first of all, I'm going to do the boring bit, get that out of the way, to get into the more interesting part later, talk about the out-of-possession stuff. So Morocco itself, it as a possession team, in reality was not that good. And I think that does have a lot to do with the way in which Brazil played the game, right? So most of the time it would be the player who's playing behind the center forward that would drift out to the left and kind of form this kind of 4-4-2 mid block with Vinicius moving forward right next to the center forward. And this really stumped Morocco, I think, right? So they would, for the most part, have kind of this, right? You have Bouadi near to the center backs, and yeah, overall, I think there's a lot to be said about how Brazil handled this kind of thing, right? They were able to kind of prevent overloads from happening, right? They prevented isolations from happening, which thank goodness, because there was not a lot of pressure on the ball, which I'm going to get to in a second. And yeah, I think they played pretty well out of possession. There's still a lot to be desired from it, especially from the pressing and the counter pressing, right? So let's move on to the screenshots, right? So here is a pretty common occurrence in the game, right? Morocco are circulating on the back, right? You have these midfielders, you have the wingers, usually far side winger a little closer, and this like right-sided winger hugging the touchline, pinning this defender. And I think in these kinds of moments, Brazil does have a lot to improve on, right? But I don't think it's as much as some people like to think, right? So here again, you can see kind of 4-4-2, right? Vinicius moving alongside Igor Thiago, and I want to say it's Paquetá at that point, playing in the left next to Fabinho, Guimaraes, and Rafinha. And here Brazil do something that I think they're really good at with Tite last World Cup especially, which is kind of forcing a mistake through the press, right? So here you can see I want to say that's Riyad with the ball at his feet. Basically, Igor Thiago is going to go to press him, ready to curve his run right, ready to have Vinicius jump on the extra center back in case he goes to the right, but he ends up pushing to the left, right? And here Brazil recognized this opportunity really, really well, right? Even the fullback is moving to put immediate pressure on the winger just in case the ball goes there immediately. You have these two moving to go into these, and Igor Thiago again kind of moving in a way that you can't really pass to these midfielders straight away. And a weak pass and a weak touch later, again, two forced mistakes by Brazil, and they're able to regain possession. Now, obviously, Rafinha's pass goes long here, which is a lot to be desired for, but I think it's still something good, positive to look forward to. But again, there's still mistakes in this. There's still issues with this, and there were still quite a few moments where Morocco just got straight through Brazil, right, tore them apart. So here you can see, right, two center backs and Boadi, the center, fullback, two midfielders, right, and you're gonna see just I think negligence just by the Brazil players, right? So Cunha here recognizes what's going on with Boadi, right? Recognizes this kind of space and moves to kind of cover that. But then once it goes to the fullback, he has to move this way. Now, this is vacating this kind of space, which in reality, Bruno Guimaraes should be covering, or at this point, Fabinho should be covering, but they just don't, right? And so one pass later, and so all of a sudden this player has all this room. Meanwhile, these guys are just staring at him, basically, right? He's able to go to the winger. The winger, not put under enough pressure by the fullback, allowed to kind of be able to stutter almost on the ball. And Morocco are just simply able to go through this Brazil team, and eventually the center forward, the Moroccan center forward, is able to kind of, here, he's able to kind of go back through and around, and all of a sudden, he doesn't have a marker because nobody followed him, because nobody cared to follow him, and now he's able to just run through the Brazil block, a Brazil block that is supposed to be putting a lot of pressure, especially in midfield, right? So I think this is one of the big things that a lot of people took away from the game, and I think rightfully so, that the midfield simply just was not athletic enough. And I think it's something that Ancelotti obviously noticed. I think it's the reason why Fabinho came on in the second half, but I'm going to get to the specific players later on. So, let's talk about the block now, right? You can't, obviously, you got to press sometimes, but especially in this heat, you got to be able to fall back in a mid to low block. Ancelotti's teams recently especially have been really good at this, right? This is how they beat Man City, that game where they had no business winning. They ended up winning. And yeah, just basically being able to have this kind of solid block in front of your goal, just not allowing the team to go through. And again, Morocco really did not produce much of anything out of their own settled possession, right? It was all based on turnovers, which I think is a fine way to play, right? But it's still merit to Brazil. So, but there's one thing here that I think goes to show how there's still things to tweak, things to coach in there, right? So here, right, Hakimi is free. In this case, Brahim has moved to the center, so Mateus Cunha is covering him. Very good by him. But once the ball goes back, for some reason, which I could not explain to you, Mateus Cunha just steps forward. Why? I don't know. I assume he thought there was a press going on now. But in this kind of situation, realistically, you'd be pressing to the opposite side, right? You'd be following the ball, right? So you would have Vinicius kind of curve his run to push the ball that way and be able to compact your team that way instead of kind of blocking it this way, surely, right? Because then that opens up this kind of diagonal. But no, Rafinha starts pressing that way. So Mateus Cunha, because Vinicius, he knows Vinicius isn't going to jump immediately on him, and Vinicius isn't a ball winner. As good as he is pressing, I think, he's not a ball winner. So Mateus Cunha has to jump here. And now, I think you can just barely see him off screen. Brahim Diaz and Hakimi are now 2v1 against the fullback. And Morocco are able to circulate the ball and get that 2v1 or a 3v3 even in this situation, because Marquinhos correctly identified what was going on that side. And yeah, I think this is just weird coaching, or just bad coaching, or just not enough coaching. I don't know. I think it's something that can be solved for sure. Mateus Cunha is an intelligent player. I don't doubt that this is going to be something that we're going to see less and less of as the tournament goes on. What I do think isn't a coaching thing as much as it's just a player selection thing it is kind of a coaching thing, but it's more of a squad selection thing, was the goal, I think, right? Now, let me just get this out of the way first. all the Brazil players are really good. Everyone involved in this goal is still a really good player, but there's still issues with it, clearly, right? So Paquetá loses the ball in the opposition half, right? That's fine. And what bothers me here is mainly the fact that a lot of the players just don't recognize the immediate danger, right? Rafinha does well in trying to jump to him. Igor Thiago just kind of trots that way, right? Maybe should be covering. I think should be maybe staying there, allowing Paquetá to follow this run while having these guys covered. But that doesn't happen, right? The Brahim Diaz is able to find space, and at this point, I just think the left back Douglas Santos should be minimum here, right? He should be minimum 1 or 2 yards from him to just immediately put pressure on him, not let him get turned, not let him play you in behind, because both your fullbacks, or one of your fullbacks at least, is in front of the ball, which is on the side that's gonna be attacked most likely. So you got to do something about that. I get this guy's going, but if you put enough pressure on him, you can delay the play enough so the other center back, Gabriel, is able to kind of cover this channel, right? But he doesn't, right? Brahim receives the ball, and at this point, look at Douglas Santos's body position here, right? He's immediately he jumps up, and then once he doesn't get the ball, he just stays there, right? That doesn't make sense. There's 4 Brazil players around Brahim Diaz. There's no way he should be able to get turned and play a ball in behind to the center forward. There's no way that should be able to happen, but it does. And then for some reason, the Gabriel, I assume, trying to cover this guy who's so far away from him that I don't understand why you should be worrying about him immediately when there's a guy on your back, just kind of lets the ball go through, right? And then one more thing, I really did not understand what Addison was doing there, right? I feel like you don't come out situations like that, or at least to there, right? What are you doing there? You're not getting to the ball, and you're also not able to use your hands to save. So if you're stood there, you just can't do anything, right? You either commit or you stay a bit further behind. So yeah, I think that those are a lot of the things, the main takeaways that I took from Brazil out of possession. Now let's move into the interesting part. Let's move into the part where you wanted to see all along, right? So how did Brazil set up? Okay, I'm gonna go back to this. Brazil, I think, really in line with a lot of their warm-up games, played a 4-2-3-1 or 4-2-4, 4-4-2, however you want to think of it. Right, Vinicius through the left, the Paquetá, which really impressed during the warm-up games, started here on the left half, on the right half space. Excuse me. Rafinha played on the left, and then you usually have the right back kind of push forward to form this front 5, right? This obviously made a lot of sense when Wesley was in the team, Wesley from Roma, but he's not there anymore, right? So you can see kind of the back 4 is a little jumbled up here. You can see the double pivot really clear, kind of clearly here, and here especially you can see Paquetá taking care of the right half space. Fullbacks pretty wide. I think a lot of people understood that it would be kind of tuck in like this, but that's really not the case because Douglas Santos wants to play in the wide channel. But you can see very clearly the double pivot here, the back 4, Paquetá acting as a third midfielder. I think it's also a pretty big thing about his role in the team, because a lot of the other players that would play as the 10 would play like more balls to the wall kind of. He didn't really do that as much. He would drop in quite a bit. Rafinha would be kind of the counterbalance to that, right, on the left hand side, partnering Vinicius. And I've never really thought they'd be able to coexist that well together. I think the big idea would be that Ancelotti had was be able to have these kind of counter movements where when Vinicius dropped for the ball, which is something that he does quite a bit, Rafinha would be able to run in behind Or when Rafinha runs in behind, like he likes to do, he drags away the fullback, which allows Vinicius to have more space there. At the end of the day, I think they just overlapped quite a lot there, which didn't made the left hand side kind of you weren't able to get Vinicius one on one with fullbacks all that much. Which I think it's Brazil's main attacking route as of right now. So that's not good. If you're not able to maximize your best player, then what are you doing, right? Now, I mentioned the thing with the right back before, and I think this led to a lot of problems on the right hand side for most of the game, right? So Roger Ibanez, not a bad player, obviously not a bad player, right? But he's just not a full on right back, right? He's not, yeah, he's not a right back. He's a center back who's fast and decent on the ball, which meant that Paquetá a lot of the time didn't really have all that much space to work with, right? Which didn't allow Brazil to play through the right hand side as much as they would have liked to at the start of the game. Here you can see that, like, Roger Ibanez just doesn't really have the instincts to know what to do in those situations, so he's not able to maximize this position or like drag away this player for Paquetá to have this space, right? Which means that Brazil are forced to take another way through, right? And this, I think, just is poor decision making, forcing Casemiro to have his back to go with two Moroccan midfielders on him. He ends up losing the ball. It just, like, it forced Brazil to play a certain way, which didn't really work. Now, later on in the second half, you saw Ancelotti change this. So, what am I talking about exactly? Not sure. Basically, you had, what was it? Igor Thiago came off for Cunha, Roger Ibanez obviously for Danilo, Casemiro for Fabinho, and you had Luis Enrique, I'm just gonna say, come on for Paquetá. And what you had now was a full-on right winger on the right and a full-on left winger on the left, which allowed your fullbacks to do less fullbacking, I guess, would be not at all the right term. And it allowed Brazil to kind of go into this weird 4-1-5, I want to say 4-1-3-2 maybe, which on most occasions, or sometimes just something like this, but basically allowed them to have more players in between the lines, more playmakers per se. So, yeah, and it also opened up quite a bit of space in the center, which meant that like players like Fabinho wouldn't be as crowded most of the time, and because of the fullbacks, like kind of the midfield will just kind of spread open, right? So here you can see what I'm talking about, right? You have the line Vinicius, Guimaraes, Rafinha, Cunha, and Luis Enrique. Luis Enrique, all in front of Fabinho. And I think this formation does have merit, but it also has other issues that I'm going to get onto later, specifically regarding player profiles. So it didn't really work as well for Brazil. Now, as for the individual players, I know this is the part that I think warrants the most attention going forward. Casemiro, Jesus fucking Christ. I genuinely cannot believe the game that he played. He was atrocious. Just terrible the entire time, right? He just could not get a pass right. He could not I saw people saying that it looked like he was running in jeans, which I thought was an inappropriate metaphor. He was running in wet jeans. Like you would expect like that sound that SpongeBob shoes make every time he took a step using those things, because he just could not cover the space correctly. He couldn't pass correctly through the block, which he constantly tried to. Right here you can see him under not that much pressure. There's still two options behind him. Just fire a pass straight into the Moroccan midfielder, right? Trying to get to Rafinha. Here you can see Casemiro getting the ball, and instead of being able to kind of go to Vinicius. He takes a bad touch. Here he goes, what do I do? I'm going to take another bad touch. Going to drive straight into the Moroccan midfield. And I'm just going to fall over and lose the ball. If I did this, I get shot, right? But Casemiro is just like, I'm digging too hard into the guy. It's not his fault. He's 36 years old. I think it goes to show that Ancelotti does have to make difficult decisions regarding some of the positions that you thought would be easy to fill in, right? I thought the double pivot of Guimaraes and Casemiro would work. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it, right? I'm not gonna try to change my words from the past, right? I thought it would work. I was wrong. It happens from time to time. I'm wrong, right? And I think one of the braver things that he did was at halftime take off Casemiro, right? Now he brought on Fabinho, which kind of had the same issue, I think, just didn't get involved as much, so he didn't draw as much attention. But what I thought was good was in the 80th minute he brought on Danilo Santos. I don't know why I keep trying to do the weird thing with the names. And I thought he was a breath of fresh air. I know he played the last like 4 friendlies, right? We all saw him. We all thought he played well. But I think he really showed what he was capable of in this game in brief moments. And I think it's a lot of merit that Ancelotti should put into should think about when selecting the next team. So here you can see Danilo, right, in the Brazil low block, right? Pretty normal situation. Here he does something that I don't think I saw either of the Brazil midfielders really be able to do this game, and he's able to recognize danger, right? So here he sees, oh, this player's not under a lot of pressure, right? Yes, he has a back turn to go, so he's most likely going to play backwards. Boadi here has tons and tons of open space, and so before the pass is even made, he's already sprinting there, and he forces Boadi to go backwards because of that kind of prediction. So that he immediately avoids a really dangerous situation just right after coming off, right? A few seconds later, you can see Boadi still being followed by Danilo as the ball is being played out wide. Now Brazil win back the ball in this situation, and from Casemiro and from Guimaraes, you wouldn't expect much in that situation, right? You'd say, oh, stay back, right? Danilo, keep in mind, this is 1-1 against a team that came in 4th the last World Cup in the 80th minute. If you're a young Brazilian midfielder, you probably just stay back here, right? But he doesn't do that because he's young, full of energy, and probably a little stupid, like most of the Brazilian midfielders, but who cares? And he sprints forward with the forwards, right? Now he does stay back once the move slows down a bit, right? And then he does something that I genuinely have not seen. I don't think I've seen a defensive midfielder for Brazil do in years, which is just kind of walk around this marker. It's really calm the opposition half, just make a calculated pass, which I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a huge trait to have, especially he's not that young. I should stop saying he's a young player, but not the super experienced one in the Brazilian national team. And he's able to just keep that cool head even after sprinting half the pitch up for a counterattack that didn't function, and just not rush into anything, which again was really impressive for me. And I think does warrant him starting against Haiti the next match, at least just to see kind of what he can do, right? Now, other players that I want to briefly touch on. Paquetá. I thought he was kind of disappointing, right? He lost the ball a lot in the first half, right? And obviously he has traits that you can see from time to time, which are really good. And I think it does make sense why he picked him. And I think it does make sense for him to be picked going forward, especially if the other issues in the team can be fixed, right? Like here, he passes the ball and he's able to just kind of move into space, kind of ghost into space. Nobody really recognizes the danger in him, and he's able to pull off pretty decent kick, in my opinion, right? So I think his ability also to kind of drop into important spaces, progress the ball when the team is stuck, I think is super important going forward, especially against tougher opposition, especially against mid-block opposition like Morocco was during large parts of this game, I think. Yeah. Next up, I think one of the bigger contention points was Rafinha. So, how do you get the best out of Rafinha in this team, right? Well, how do you get the best out of how has Barcelona gotten the best out of Rafinha? Well, that's been playing through the left, right? You've had him on the left with an overlapping fullback and allow him to just attack directly, not tuck in as much as a lot of people think. I think his best moments have been when he's in the half space attacking in behind, right? This Brazil team just cannot afford him that. That's the truth because of Vinicius, right? So what does he have to do? Well, he has to play lower down maybe in the half space, right? Be more of a supporting role, perhaps, which is just not Rafinha's game, I don't think, at all, right? And you can see kind of the one thing that he tries to do a lot of the time is just kind of receive under pressure and just kind of do what he can, right? And during a lot of the game, and a lot of Brazil games as of recent, he just looked lost, in my opinion, right? He should be a good player. He should be able to kind of do what he does on the left for Barcelona on the right, but he just can't. He can't do it on the right. He can't do it on the left. He can't do it through the center. Do you drop Rafinha? Do you drop Rafinha for the next game? I think that's a really tough decision for Ancelotti to make, right? The alternative to him, realistically, maybe Ryan, but he's not played much, is Luis Enrique. Now, I like Luis Enrique. Before the World Cup, I would talk to everyone saying, this guy is going to start, right? This guy is really good. Thing is, he is really good, but there's specific situations in which he is really good. And that is attacking forward, right? He can't really play back to goal. And you saw a lot of the time that he was in this game, he was playing back to goal, right? Because he was getting really pressed really hard by the fullback, and sometimes getting ganged up on by the midfielder and the winger, which just it's not his game, right? Obviously. So you saw constantly him just having to go backwards in these kinds of situations. Nobody in front of him really making a run when they should be, maybe. Nobody here to support him, right? Just awkward in between positions, which I think need to be fixed going forward. And one final player that I want to dunk on is Igor Thiago. I want to talk bad about him. I do, but the truth is he's just a different kind of system player, right? He's not here to. He doesn't do at Brentford what he's being asked to do here, right? The one situation in which he was all right at was when we went long to him, right? Which I think does make sense in some games, right? So here, obviously, going almost straight from a goal kick to him, you have Rafinha and Paquetá ready to pick up the second ball here, right? But this kind of play, right, is kind of route one football, right? Just pump it forward to the number 9, not just, but pump it forward to the number 9, win the second ball, and then keep attacking forward. You need a good counter press behind it, and I said touched on before that's just not there, right? Which means that Brazil just lose the ball really quickly while trying to get back forward after kind of scrapping for the ball there for a little bit, right? Now that's all my doom and glooming for today. But there's one player that I need to touch on that I think is the big thing that still gives me hope as a Brazilian, and that's Vinicius Jr., right? Here is, I want to say Paquetá, giving the ball to Vinicius Jr. Now, to keep in mind where he is in the pitch right now, right? And look where he lets go of the ball, right? That just took Brazil up from the middle third into the box, basically. Yeah, the box. Which is just absolutely huge to have in any situation of the game, right? And then to not just do that, but in a situation where a lot of the players would just like throw in a hopeful cross, maybe shoot, maybe I don't know, for him to be able to, in the biggest stage in the world, quite frankly, be able to cut inside and score a just magnificent goal, maybe a good goal, a great goal, is a kind of ability that is so important to win the World Cup, to go far in the World Cup, to do well at international level, to just have a player that can just pull off magic tricks in the middle of a game. That's so important that I think it still gives Brazil hope, right? Like I look at Vinicius and I see a path forward kind of for Brazil at the World Cup, a key to what is missing there, right? And even in situations that weren't a goal, right? And here, Mateus Cunha is isolated, basically. He has 3 Moroccan players around him. He's going to lose the ball if he doesn't do something quickly. And he sends out a not incredible pass, right? Still a good pass, don't get me wrong, but not an incredible pass. And Vinicius gets to the end of it and puts in a great ball for Rafinha. Now, Rafinha should do better here. He fires it straight into the goalkeeper. But that's a really good chance that I don't know how many. I know it's not super flashy by Vinicius, but I don't know how many players of the World Cup can take a situation like that and turn it into that, right? So that just gives me a lot of hope for this Brazil team, right? And the fact that the manager hasn't just immediately given up, right? There hasn't gone, oh, Casemiro's not working. Well, I'm just going to keep him on. Hope he can do something, right? Just give the ball to Vinicius. There's an actual there's something here, is what I'm trying to say, right? It's not just Vinicius, but it's geared around Vinicius in a way that doesn't center it on him, that doesn't put all the responsibility on him. It's a system that can adapt. It's a system that has many different players that can play many different positions. It's a system that, in spite of having arguably your 3 starting right backs be injured in the lead up to the cup, still not having a really good winger in Alcanus ravaging through your team is, I think, merit to what Ancelotti is building and what this Brazil team has, which is just raw quality, which can be concentrated into something by Ancelotti. That's all my yapping. I know that I kind of went off the cuff a little bit during this, right? I know I didn't make a lot of sense by the end. I hope some of you all understood what I was trying to say. I'm going to put out probably either tomorrow or the day after tomorrow my team prediction and my personal team for the Haiti game. I think that's going to be pretty interesting to see. I might cover the Haiti game. Not sure about it. I'll definitely cover the Scotland game, though. And then, obviously, every game going forward from there for the Brazil national team. I hope you all enjoyed. Subscribe. Make sure to share, like, do whatever the hell kids do these days on YouTube. Hope it didn't shit too much on your favorite players. And I'll see you next time.